Hello, welcome again. Good to know that you're there. Thank you so much for your previous watch time, your subscription, and following and your liking. Thank you so much. These things are important, they're encouraging. I want you to do more of that. And if perhaps you just joined for the first time, please like. You want to also check the previous videos so that you know how we've been coming. So this was the last work we did. I stopped this and this is it. And let's see how we do this second question. Now if you did the question, you try this, and let's go for the comment section. Let me take this off first. Now I'm taking this off. So to the next question. So let's have the next. So we'll be having this solution to it. So we have the square root of 6 times the square root of 8 times the square root of 10 times the square root of 12. Now what we'll do is that we'll look at this, we'll consider that none of them have a perfect square root. So 6 doesn't have a perfect square root, 8 doesn't have a perfect square root, 10 doesn't, and 12 doesn't. But they may have factors that have a perfect square root. Now let's see if it's possible. Let's pick one from one. Let's pick them one by one. The first is 6. What is 6? 6 is the same thing as 3 times 2 or 2 times 3. 3 doesn't have a perfect square root, 2 doesn't have, but either way, because of the process, let's break it down. So 6 is the same thing as 3 times 2 or 2 times 3. Now what is 8? 8 is the same thing as 4 times 2. Now, does any one of them have a perfect square root? Yes, that is 4. 4 has a perfect square root. So, but meanwhile, let's just have it as 4 times 2, right? Now let's go. The next is 10. 10 is the same thing as 5 times 2. Does it have a perfect square root? None. Not this, not this. So the both of them just leave as 5 times 2. Then the next is 12. 12 is the same thing as 6 times 2. Does any one of them have a perfect square root? No. Not this, not this. And 12 is also the same thing as 4 times 3. Does anyone have a perfect square root? Yes, 4 has a perfect square root. The square root of 4 is 2, so we pick this combination. So it's going to be 4 times 3. So we didn't pick this because this doesn't have a perfect square root. 6 doesn't have any perfect square root, this doesn't have a perfect square root. So pick the one that at least one of them have a perfect square root. So that's 4. Now let's go. Now just like you put them in a single, like I always say, you put the food of 2 persons in one plate, so you can decide to separate them. So let's have it separated. So this is going to be like 3 having its own separate square roots, and this 2 has its own separate square root. That's done. You have it times 4 has a perfect square root, a perfect square root. Okay, fine. Let's separate it. Now this is now saying square root of 4 times the square root of 2, separating them on different dishes. Now this times, this is 5 having its own having its own square root sign, and 2 having its own square root sign, right? Then come here, this multiplication sign, this is 4 and 3. Taking everything step by step so you'd understand. Maths is simple, maths is also difficult, but if you follow the steps, you get it. So let's see. 3 doesn't have a perfect square root, it remains. This remains 2, so this will remain as root 3 times root 2. This doesn't have a perfect square root. Times 4 has a perfect square root because 4 is the same thing as a particular number multiplying itself. A particular number that will multiply itself to give 4 is 2, and that's 2 times 2. So 4 will be represented by 2 by 2. So the square root of 4 is the same thing as what? 2. So this 4 changes to 2. You will notice there is no square root sign on it. Fine. Times 2. 2 doesn't have a perfect square root. This times here, and this is 5 doesn't have a perfect square root, so repeat it 5. And then 2 doesn't have a perfect square root, to repeat it as square root of 2 times 4 has a perfect square root. Square root of 4 is 2. Because 4, this 4 is the same thing as 2 times 2, right? So